Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's great to see you all here today. My name is Joost, and I'm going to tell you something about the oceans. But I'm going to start in space. This is a picture that you'll see over here. That's the very first picture that was taken of our planet from space back in 1946. I think it's pretty amazing. The next one you'll probably recognize. This is called Earthrise. This is an image taken back in 1968 as part of the Apollo 8 mission, where you can nicely see our Earth in the background and the moon at the bottom of the image. But what happened is actually over the last decades we got really used to seeing our planet from space. So whenever you turn on your television, you'll see it in the Weather Channel, or when you watch movies, you see images like this all the time. We got really used to it. But the thing that always really fascinates me when I see an image like this is that it is really a blue planet that we live on. And that's because 71% is covered by water and only 29% is covered by land. But the interesting part is of this water part, only 5% has been explored, is known, which basically means that 2/3 of our planet is completely unknown to us. We actually know more about the surface of Mars than we do of our own planet. And I think that's pretty fascinating. Now, and that's something that's always really easy to imagine. Now, this is an image of me standing with my little daughter on the coastline of Holland, where I grew up basically. And imagine you're standing there and you're looking towards the water. You basically have no idea what is down there. There might be some sand, there might be some plants, some fishes swimming around, but basically we have no idea. If I, however, stand there and I look the other direction, I can see the beach, I can see trees, I can see houses, I can look up, I can see the moon, I can look on my phone and I can see the pyramids in Egypt. It's all so accessible above water, but underwater we hardly know anything. And there's multiple reasons why that's actually the case. Very simple, there's a figure here on the left. How much money have we basically spent on ocean exploration versus space exploration? In 2013, NASA spent almost $4 billion on space exploration. And at the same time, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration in the United States, a very big organization, only spent $24 million on it, so only a fraction. And of course, last century we had the whole race for the moon, so we actually know quite a lot what is out there. But what is down there in the ocean, we hardly know. So my talk is really going to be about seafloors, what is down there, and why are they so alien to us? Why are there so many secrets down there? Now, imagine you're going on a little holiday. Maybe you want to go somewhere tropical or maybe subtropical. So you go online and you look for a nice trip that you can go on, or maybe even go to a travel agency. And when you do that, you always see images like this one. You see somebody happily swimming in the water, the crystal clear, a nice background. You see people snorkeling with amazing sea life like a turtle. You see images like this where you see really beautiful structures. The sun is nicely shining through the crystal clear water. It's pretty amazing, right? Now, the last 10 to 15 years, I've been working as a marine biologist. I started my own company studying seafloors, so I really developed a different eye basically for how do I observe the seafloors. So actually how I just described these last three images is not really how I see them anymore. So let's go back to the same ones and I'll tell you how I see them actually. This image, when I look at the seafloors, I'm just focusing on the seafloor here, there's actually quite a lot of destruction there. What the seafloor should be is not there anymore. The next image is even worse. This image is probably used to be a coral reef that is now a sand flat covered by cyanobacterial and algal slime. There's just nothing left of what it actually should be. And the third image, which you might have thought looks pretty amazing, it's a pretty interesting statue that you see. But this is a coral reef where on the bottom of the statue you just see algal or coral rubble. So basically dead coral reefs. There's hardly anything alive. I wouldn't even call this a coral reef. It's more like an algae or cyanobacterial dominated reef. And the thing is, this happens to us all the time, that we look at images or things very differently based on our background information. On the next slide, I'm going to show you a picture of my little daughter, who's actually sitting right there in the audience, of the face expression she makes when she realizes my laptop doesn't have touchscreen, because she expects it. This is what she does. She's very used to that every screen, yeah, right there. She's very used that the screen is touchscreen. And for me, that underwater on seafloors, that's such a big discrepancy, like how we see seafloors, how we live them basically, happened in this exact moment for me. This is back a picture taken back in 2010. I was doing my PhD, I was studying coral reefs, the effect of climate change on these coral reefs, and I did a lot of diving at the time. This is from a small island in the Southern Caribbean called Curaçao, and I had a lot of students, and this is a picture of one of my best students at the time. And this is the moment where we get out of a dive. We just completed a dive on a coral reef, and I asked her, what did you think? Now, she has already been diving many, many times before, but it was the first time on a coral reef. And she told me she really enjoyed it. She thought it was a beautiful reef, nice fishes, nice colors. But I was really shocked because 99% of the reef was just dead. There was hardly any coral left. It was just bacterial and algal slime, basically. And this leads to a phenomenon called shifting baselines. So basically how she observed the reef at that time, as she has moved on, she's done amazing work in the meantime, but how she at that time observed the reef was, and what she thought was normal, was actually not, because I had some background information already, and I knew this was not really normal. So that means that if you don't really see it, you're probably not going to take any action, because you think it is normal. Now these two people are some of my personal heroes. They're Jacques Cousteau and Dr. Sylvia Earle, who I met a little while ago. I was very happy to have met her. They have done amazing work when it comes to ocean exploration, to showing how important oceans are. Conservation was a really big theme for them. Now imagine if I would go diving with them and I would bring them to a beautiful coral reef. Would they also agree with me? They've been diving already for many, many years before me. Now, let's quickly go back to the basics. Why am I talking about seafloors? Why are they really important? And there are numerous reasons, and I'll just highlight a couple of them. The first one is pretty obvious. Seafloors, like coral reefs, they're a very important food source. There are 1 billion people directly and indirectly depending on coral reefs for food. Coral reefs are also very important as a coastal barrier. They have a very important 3D structure. This 3D structure makes sure that waves that crash into land during storms and things like that sort of get minimized. The energy gets reduced so that the wave doesn't directly crash into urbanized areas or wherever. They are very important as a coastal barrier. But also, and another thing that I find very amazing is that seafloors are also very important carbon sinks. So when you hear the story about reforestation, so we replant the land with new trees, you can also do these things underwater. There are these so-called underwater forests, like kelp forests you might have heard of, or seagrass meadows. Those are also really important. But the fact remains that seafloors, for most of us, are still very alien. Because every time somebody dives or snorkels for the first time, you get this reaction. They're always really amazed. It's always beautiful. And it is beautiful. And I have done a lot of diving myself. But it's just not really true what they see. Now imagine that we could look at the seafloor with somebody else's eyes. Somebody that has a bit more sophisticated eyes. And look at it objectively so we all understand the importance of seafloors. This little guy, this little animal, I think is really fascinating. This guy is called the Peacock Mantis shrimp. It's actually not really shrimp, it's a stomatopod. It's about this big, weighs the same amount as a basketball. It's quite an aggressive little animal, and it lives on Indian and Pacific coral reefs. But there's two reasons why I think that this animal is amazing. The first reason is that it is an excellent boxer. With its front leg, it can punch 50 times faster than the blink of an eye. it can punch, it basically punches at the same speed as a .22 caliber bullet. It punches through glass. It holds the world record for fastest punch in the animal kingdom. It's pretty cool, right? But there's another reason why it's really amazing, and that's because it has amazing eyes in comparison to ours. So our eye, as you can see in the image here, we basically have 3 color receptive cones that are sensitive for the red, green, and blue lights of the light spectrum. Now, this little guy that I just showed you doesn't have just 3, it has 12 to 16. So that basically means a lot of the light that we get into our eye, we're actually not really using. A lot of it we just throw away. We just use what we need to see what we see now, basically. But they can see so much more than we can do, which I think is really awesome. Now imagine we could look through their eyes and look at the seafloor and make it objective, make it standardized, make it easy for everybody to understand how important they are for politicians, coastal managers, general public. It doesn't really matter. And this guy is really amazing. But a technology for this actually already exists. We already have it in space for decades. And it's called multi- and hyperspectral imaging. And there's really amazing things that you can do with that. So over the next couple of slides, I'll show you what this multispectral imaging can do. It's basically a technology that uses more of the light than we normally would. Where normal cameras use 3 light colors, with multi and hyperspectral you can go up to hundreds. So, like I said, it has already been used in space. You can basically make the invisible visible. I'm going to show you an image of a satellite of part of California. You can see on the bottom right of the screen some urbanized area. In brown you see some hills, some mountains. And on the top you can see forest fires. Now this looks like a very normal image created by NASA and ESA, but it actually isn't. It's actually a combination of a normal image and a multispectral image. So what they have been able to do is they've been able to visualize where are these fires using a different part of the light spectrum. Because normal image, if you would take it, you just see clouds. You don't really see the fire. So you see the smoke, you don't see the fire. But they've been able to recreate it so that you can see where are my forest fires, that you can directly target them and really, fight this. And there's so much more that you can do with it. You can also visualize the effect of climate change on land masses, like more deserts that are starting to exist, or cyanobacterial blooms in the oceans. There's so much you can highlight, which otherwise we wouldn't really see. But you can also use this technology on land. This is a very simple avocado. If you look at it, you think, okay, why is he showing me an avocado? The question is this one good? Should I buy it when I'm in the supermarket, yes or no? You can basically look at it with a different eye, and then you can see, oh, there's actually some spots on it. Maybe I shouldn't buy this one, right? There are also multispectral scanners being used to scan for skin cancer. So there's so much more you can visualize, but you can also use this technology underwater. So over the next slide, I'm going to show you a piece of coral reef. It's about 1 meter wide by about 20 meters long. You're looking at it from above, and I'd like you to see if you understand the image that I'm showing you. This is a coral reef in the Pacific. It's probably really difficult to see what you're actually looking at. Maybe you see some rocks, some algae. Usually, if you see this for the first time, you have no idea what am I actually really looking at. But now imagine we look with this different eye towards it, and I overlay this normal RGB image, so to say, with a hyperspectral image. And I do that. Well, we'll do that for half of the image. So on the right-hand side, I'm going to show you where and how much alive coral is actually there. When you do that, you create a very simple map, and you see, oh, actually 6% is actually still coral. So maybe this is actually not a coral reef. Maybe it's just an algae and bacteria-dominated reef. And you can make it actually as detailed as you like. But what this allows you to do is you create an image in such a way that everybody understands what we're actually looking at. So politicians know what this means for example, climate legislation. Coastal managers see how effective are their restoration efforts. We can, for example, monitor plastic waste, which is a huge problem, but underwater it's very much unknown. So sometimes we basically need a set of new eyes or new glasses, or whatever you like to call it, to really see the truth underwater, because it's still very alien. There are secrets down there which we don't really understand yet. But with the new technology, we might be able to highlight this. And it's very simple in the end. If there's a problem and you don't see it, you don't believe it. Because seeing is believing in the end. So therefore, let's also look down as much as we look up. Thank you very much.